spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of Storytime with the Scariest Podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And today, we're here to read you folks some homegrown horrors. Adam, why don't you tell us what those are?
Homegrown horrors are the wonderful, spooky, supernatural, scary, sometimes coincidental, sometimes true crime, sometimes extraterrestrial in nature stories that you folks have sent to us, and we sincerely appreciate those. We love it when you send in your stories and say, hey, read these, so we don't have to reply, hey, can we read this on the story, or was this just meant for us? If you want to send it just for us, that is totally okay as well. We get a lot of those, but for anyone who has a story that would like to be read, this is the show where we read them. Robin, for anyone who has a story like that, where can they send them?
You can send it to our email, storytime@scariest.com. You can also go to our website, scariest.com. There's a contact us page on there. You just fill out that form, super simple, and it emails it to us that way.
Indeed. Speaking of super simple, transitioning to me. How self-burn. We're going to be reading 4 emails this evening. I think I'm going to be going first. We didn't really talk about it,
We didn't talk about it, so.
I just assume I'm going to go first. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and get into my first email of the show, and the subject is something spooky. And it starts out like this. I remember when I was younger. Wow, no hi or hello? Just getting right into it, huh?
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I would often have issues sleeping. And then it says, I know, off the deep end.
Okay.
I remember a few nights when my family lived in a 2-story apartment that had a wooden fire escape right off my window. One night, I remember that I could barely sleep and looked outside. I saw a figure moving around and did not think anything of it, so I ended up falling asleep half in terror because my parents said to shake it off. Cue Taylor Swift, in parentheses. Pretty good.
Shake it off.
Sorry, I had to dance there for a second. No one can hear that on the episode. All I remember is waking up to tapping on my window and then noise in my closet. I yelled to my dad to check on whatever was there, and he throws the curtains open and there was nothing. The closet, nothing. And he says, go back to sleep. You're going to be in trouble. So little me goes back to sleep, but also wakes back up, but I cannot move. I just laid there. There was terror and the tapping turned to scraping. Then my mom came in and woke me up from the terror. Dun, dun, dun. I'm not sure if I got the sound effect right, but it's actually
Isn't it like
there.
dun, dun, dun?
That might be actually right. Same thing happened every 2 weeks or so until we moved, and the person in charge told my parents that someone had died. I have more stories if you need. Hope you both enjoyed, and stay awesome. Feel free to share. Thank you so much. We appreciate you saying that. That's really fucking creepy. I feel like they should disclose to you when you're moving in or when you're looking at the place that someone has passed away in the apartment. I'm guessing that that's what they meant by that. It's really odd that they would disclose it to you after you left, because I'm pretty sure if they're supposed to disclose it to you before you moved in, they could be in trouble for that.
Do you get discounted rent?
It's not like they look at you like, oh yeah, you get the murder discount because this place had someone dying here. I think it's more like if no one wants to buy it or rent it, depending on what kind of property it is, the value just starts to go down.
All right.
So it's like one of those things where, oh yeah, we got it super cheap. Like it's too good to be true, because it probably is. So perhaps that's what happened here. But right on. Thank you for sending that in.
Yeah.
Definitely send in the rest of your stories. We want to hear them.
Yeah, when it comes to apartments and things like that, I always wonder, because it's not like people don't die in them. I mean, we just had a huge shootout out here in Vegas just yesterday.
Not on our side of town.
Not on our side of town, but
we had one of those a few years ago.
We did have one of those when we used to live in our apartment. I was home by myself and I heard this really loud bang and I was so confused. And then I heard people screaming and running, and then police just started flooding in and showing up, and our next door neighbor had gotten shot. And I was just by myself. I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now, but it does happen. And so I'm always wondering if rents get lowered overall in the entire units, or just that unit.
I mean, our next door apartment got rented out pretty quickly after that. So
that's true.
I think they just didn't disclose it, to be honest with you.
That's crazy.
I guess it just depends on where you live and whether or not it's required by law. So interesting stuff. Thank you one more time for sending that in.
Alrighty then. This story continues, or begins, because I didn't even start it yet. This story begins. This is kind of a long story, so I guess I'll just start frankly. My parents' house is haunted. They will not admit that, of course, but they know. They moved from the city before my older brother and I were born. They already had 4 children. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, pretty good.
But that would be a reason to move from the city, I think. When you have so many kids,
yeah, you wind up moving to the suburbs,
Yeah.
you have more space, stuff like that.
They bought a plot of land in the country and built our house. Nice. It was a one-story house, but it's pretty big. It's been hard for me to try to compile all of the things that happened over the years because we just kind of got used to it. After listening to you guys, I brought it up with my siblings and a cousin who spent a lot of time at the house, and we started talking about some of the stuff that happened. I moved out of there 8 years ago as soon as I finished school. I noped the fuck out, to be honest. Now, I'm not really afraid of the house as such, but I don't like to be in it alone. I've actually never been alone in the house. As a teenager, if I knew that I was going to be alone there, I would go to my friend's house or go anywhere else until someone was home. I spent a lot of my teenage years out with friends doing stupid stuff and not going home at night, mostly because I hated the place then. I think that's why a lot of kids, though, like to spend time outside of their parents' house, because it's like, you just don't want to be. Sometimes you just hate it.
I mean, yeah, you grow up, you hit adolescence, all of a sudden your home feels like a prison.
Yes.
You want to break out of your boundaries. For me, it's like my parents fought sometimes, and that was like the first time I was able to just leave. I had just gotten my license, and my mom and dad started arguing. I was like, oh, fuck this. And I left, and I went to my friend's house. I was like, wow, it's like my world is so much bigger now. But in a lot of cases, I wanted to explore a lot. I was very, I had wanderlust, I think is what they call it. So
wanderlust.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't know. Okay. I have 5 siblings, 3 sisters, and 2 brothers. It's a 4-bedroom house, so parents in one room, 2 girls in each of the next 2 rooms, and the 2 boys in the last one. When I was a baby, my grandmother came to live with us. She was well into her 80s then, and she shared the room with me and my older sister. These rooms must have been huge.
It sounds like they're at least big enough to fit multiple people.
Now, when I look back, she was pretty crazy. She had a little dog that came with her that literally just sat in her lap all day, giving the stink eye to anyone who would come near. She would talk to the dog all day, and if it went anywhere, she would call it and they yell at it for not answering her, which was kind of funny then. But anyway, from the time she moved in, she used to say, quote unquote, "There's more here."
Wow, that's creepy.
Which we didn't really understand at the time. She would have these episodes where she would try to run away and she would be really hysterical, trying to get out of the house. This was distressing for me and my siblings at the time. My brothers and I were pretty young, and obviously we didn't want her to run away. She was actually really good to us despite the craziness, so we would be crying and guarding the doors. But I kid you not, this 80-odd-year-old woman would climb out the windows. My parents often had to go find her. She was very superstitious and would tell us stories about ghosts and other stuff that she'd experienced. She swore that she saw the banshee when my grandfather died. Wow. I don't know.
Terrifying.
I don't know if we've covered that Legend of Banshees yet.
We have a long time ago.
Where they cry out, right?
And, you hear the wailing.
There's one legend where they knock on the door, and if they knock on your door, then someone's gonna die. You know.
And it's if you hear the wailing, it's typically like someone you know is gonna die. Away.
Yeah. Basically, she used to scare the shit out of us. When I was 8, she died in her sleep. My sister and I were asleep in the room. The dog woke us up because she was whining so much. I don't remember much of what followed, but it's around then that my memories of shit happening started. My siblings remember more. The most common thing that happened was in the attic. It's a 1-story house, and the attic runs the length of the house.
Big attic.
The attic is something that has been happening for as long as I can remember and have never gotten used to it. So the strange things that happen in the attic.
Right.
It happens every couple months. When you think it stopped, it starts again. It would start at the end of the house and work its way up. Footsteps. Heavy ones. This is weird because they built this house. So why are there weird things happening in a house that they built? It's
right.
Like,
there shouldn't be someone whose spirit might be left over in the house.
Well, except for the grandma now. My parents said it was wind, floorboards, and even rats. The thuds were even and paced. They would walk over my brother's room, my room, and my sister's, get to the other end of the house, and then they would run back down.
That's fucking terrifying.
And that would be the pattern. It could happen just once, or it could happen for hours. One time, I had a friend staying over, and it happened. We ended up sleeping in my brother's room with them, and she never stayed over again. I would do the same thing. I'd be like, nah, guys, I'm out. Thanks, though.
Yeah, I'd call my parents, like, hey, I'm homesick. Come get me.
Have you ever had to call someone during a sleepover?
No, never. Okay. Not once. I had a friend do that when I was really little.
Really?
Yeah, he just started crying in the middle of the night. He's like, I'm homesick. And I would literally was like, what's that? Like, I'd never heard of it before. So I was so offended. Like, you'd rather be with your parents in your bed than hanging out in this kick-ass fort in my basement.
Did you ever ask your parents if you could sleep over somewhere, and then they would say no? And then so you get your friends to ask, so your parents would have to say yes to your friends?
My parents said yes pretty frequently. They were happy to be rid of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My parents were not that way. We had to get our friends to, like, hey, can you ask my mom if we can sleep over? Because she'll say no to me, you know? And so our friends would ask, and then my mom would have to be like, oh, yeah, I
did do the
fine.
thing before where it's like one of my parents would say no, and then I'd ask the other parent.
And then they say yes.
They'd say yes. Or, like, one of them would say, ask your father, or if it's okay with your dad, or if it's okay with your mom. You know, and then I'd be like, oh, they said okay. You know?
Yeah, my dad.
And I wouldn't actually ask the other parent. I would just say, like, oh, they said okay.
My dad was always like, go ask your mom. Like,
oh, so it's no.
Yeah. All right. So my sister had some of the worst experiences. The 2 beds in the room she was in were in an L shape. The end of one bed was at the head of the other. She was alone in that room as my eldest sister had left for college. She woke up in the night and opened her eyes because she felt like something was watching her. When she looked, there was a man kneeling at the other bed, looking directly down at her. So there's a guy kneeling at the end of the other bed. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming just like on top, looking down, you know?
I just imagine they're staring directly at you, so it's like, what the fuck is going on?
She was frozen and couldn't move, so she closed her eyes and counted to 10. She was sure she had imagined it, but he was still there when she opened them. He was wearing what looked like a dirty white shirt and overalls with suspenders, so he was not modern by any standard. After closing her eyes again, he was gone. That same sister was babysitting us one night. She was in the living room and she heard footsteps in the hallway. Thinking it was one of us, she came out to send us back to bed. No one was there and the doors were closed. She went down the hallway and into my brother's room. When she was in there, she heard the footsteps run back up the hallway. At this point, she was terrified. I'm terrified.
Right, that's terrifying.
But she went back out of the room and walked back up towards the living room. Halfway up, she heard the steps run right past her.
That's so fucking scary.
She told my parents, but they didn't believe her. I had nightmares for most of my childhood and would go to my parents' bed in the middle of the night. The worst thing about that house is the long hallway with a full-length mirror at the end. My room was at the top and my parents' was at the end. After waking up, it was the most terrifying thing having to go down that hallway because I was always sure something was behind me or I would see it in the mirror. One time, I did my usual sprint down the hallway and my parents' room was locked. I screamed and hammered at the door until my mother opened it. Neither of my parents remembered locking it because it's not something that they did. Another time... What?
Sounds like the parents were doing it. No, I don't know how the door got locked. No. It's weird. So weird. No, don't sleep in the bed with us. Sleep by the foot of the bed.
Another time, I was really sick. I was maybe about 8, and I had a fever so bad that I slept for the best part of 3 days. I woke up at one point completely disoriented and saw a man standing in my doorway. Okay.
It was the grandma who passed away, but you keep seeing the spirit of a man.
Right.
Which is really fucking creepy.
Yes. I don't remember what he was wearing or whether he was similar to what my sister saw, but he turned and disappeared down the hallway. I got out of bed and went out there down into my parents' room, but he was gone. They found me on the floor in there and took me back to bed. What the French toast.
Right.
My cousin and I were always very close. He's 2 years younger than me, and he would stay at my house a lot. He only remembers one incident very clearly. We always slept in the same bed until we were about 10 and 12, and my parents said that we were too old to be sleeping in the same bed. So at this time, my 3 older sisters were gone, and the next bedroom was now the guest room. This was the bedroom that my sister had seen the man. So my cousin was told he had to sleep in there. I would be so scared.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
No one sleeps in that room because of the spirits. But yeah, you're going to sleep in there tonight. Have fun.
Sometimes in the middle of the night, he woke up. He could hear rustling in the room, like a paper bag or something being moved. He kept his eyes closed, too afraid to open them. That would be me. Even when I wake up from nightmares, I don't open my eyes because I'm so scared something's going to be there. The rustling eventually stopped, and he said he felt heat on the side of his face.
Like someone's breathing on him.
And something breathed in his ear. He leapt out of bed and out of the room into mine in a blind panic. From then on, he slept at the end of my bed when he came over.
I would also like to point out the absurdity of when you're experiencing something supernatural, thinking going to another person is going to solve it. I understand it. When I was a kid, I did the same thing. I would do the same thing now. But what you're really doing is just picking who you want to die with you. Because if it wants to keep happening, it's like, why'd you drag me into this? You know, it's like, there's nothing that really prevents these things from continuing on when you get the other person. It's like that scene in Hill House when Theo starts yelling at Shirley, like, why were you banging on my wall?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're both in the room when the wall's getting banged on. It's like, I don't know if it would have gone to Shirley had Theo not shown up. But it's just funny to me where it's like, something scary happened. Can you be included in this so I'm not alone? That mindset is always hilarious to me.
We all saw and heard this weird shit over the years, but when I was about 15, I was at a friend's house and her uncle was there, and he was some sort of psychic or medium. He was super into the occult and would participate in seances, etc. It's very important to say that I never told this girl anything about my house. She'd never been there. Thankfully, it being pretty far out gave me an excuse to not have to invite anyone over after that one time. The uncle was a real, fun, eccentric guy, and me and my friend had been drinking. At 15.
All right. It's young. That's all I'm going to say.
It's really young. Please drink responsibly, people. He told us a bunch of stories and did some card readings for us. Anyway, he offered to drive me home that night, so my friend and I got in the car and off we went. There are a couple of other houses around mine, and you would really need directions. It's not like a row of houses or anything. I assume it's like back in Indiana.
Sounds like he's going to drive right to your house, and that's fucking creepy.
Oh, that would be so creepy.
Yeah, in Indiana where it's a bunch of back roads, so you never really know.
And all the houses are really spread out.
Right.
At least from what I noticed. There's like lots of fields and then one house in the middle of all the vegetable growth.
You typically have a fairly large lot where I'm from, so you don't have to be like directly next to someone.
When we were coming to the general area, I said to him, "Hey, there's a haunted house out here. Can you find it?" Like I said earlier, neither of these people knew where I lived. After driving for another couple of minutes, he pulled up outside my house. I didn't open my mouth. I was so shocked. Not that the house was haunted, but that him stopping here gave me some validation. Because as a psychic, he's saying like, this is the haunted house.
I mean, sometimes it's pretty easy to pick out the haunted house. It's the dilapidated one that looks like shit and the yard's not done.
Oh, God.
It's like, yep, that's the haunted house right there.
That's a stereotype.
Sorry for stereotyping haunted houses. Sorry for the derelict houses out there that are just empty and unkempt that are like, I'm not haunted.
Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe not. I don't know, but he stopped outside anyway, and he said, "This is the house, and it's not the house that's haunted."
That's super creepy.
That is creepy. I asked him what he meant, and he said, something is haunting the land, not the house. Okay, so they bought this land. That's why the house, it's like the house is brand new. Why is the house haunted? It's the actual land that they bought that's haunted. So
that's creepy as
that's
fuck.
Really creepy. My friend asked him how he knew, and he told us that it was standing outside the car.
That's super fucking
so creepy. Okay. I was absolutely terrified then and got him to drop me at the nearest neighbors where I called my parents to come get me. Needless to say, they didn't take what I told them seriously. It was only a couple of months later I told my friend that the house we stopped at was my house. So my parents built the house 30 years ago now. Given that none of us ever got hurt or anything dangerous as such ever happened, I'm pretty sure that whatever is in the house is not that malevolent, but it made itself known the entire time that we lived there.
So it's just there to torture you.
Sounds like it.
Psychologically. It's not actually trying to hurt you physically.
It's just terrifying. The fact that...
It's just outside the car?
Yes!
What if it was waiting for you to come home? What if it was like, oh, I missed her, but I can only go as far as the land, so I'm going to wait to make sure she's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ooh,
there
that's so creepy.
Positive spin.
Okay. Very creepily positive spin.
You're welcome.
But yeah, that's really interesting that your friend's uncle was like, yo, this is a haunted house, just saying.
It's very odd that he's like, yeah, drink up, 15-year-olds, get drunk.
Maybe, well, it's responsible that he was like, you guys don't go anywhere by yourselves. You guys have been drinking. Let me drive you, you know?
Yeah, maybe he didn't even know they were drinking, come to think of it. Maybe they were drinking and like hiding it and then going down and like hanging out or talking or something like that. Or going somewhere else to drink. I think I'm speculating on the wrong part of the story. It is super terrifying that he found your house by just saying like, hey, find the haunted house. And then he just says it's not the house, it's the land. Because we were speculating during the story, like, why would the grandma not be the one like hanging out in the house after she passed away there when it's some man? It's like, what the hell kind of connection does he have? So Yeah, that's super terrifying. Was that the end of it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There's no the end or anything like
Nope.
that. Nice. Leave us hanging.
Yeah.
Leave us wanting more.
Thanks.
Good stuff. That was a great story. Thank you for sending that in. We're going to go ahead and move into the portion of the show called The Commercial Break. So before we actually go into the ads that we typically run on Twitch, we have to go over our sponsor that we have for the month of November. Let's go ahead and open this thing up because they ask you to hold the product while you're talking about it. So we are sponsored by Manscaped. You can head over to manscaped.com and use code SCARYISH, all caps, at checkout for 20% off and free shipping, which is pretty awesome. They have a lot of different products. They have underwear that are just super soft. It's like your
soft.
balls are in heaven, or your lady balls. What the fuck about?
I don't know.
It's just incredibly soft. They have a bunch of other stuff. They have like ball deodorant, ball toner. I got a little sampler box so I could try some of this stuff out. And also one of the more popular products they have is called the Lawnmower 3.0, which I actually already owned before they ever reached out to us because it's specifically for trimming sensitive hair. It's super powerful. It's great for delicate skin. And I'm not just saying this because they're asking us to. I'm saying this because I bought this friggin' thing before they ever reached out to us, and I absolutely love it. It has a little headlight on it in case you need to do anything in the dark. Yeah, and it's just a great product. So we absolutely support them. We appreciate that they reached out to us. Last week, Robin gave me a little patch on my arm, which still does not have hair. So...
No, wait. Let me just... Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you can use it on any other part of your body. It doesn't just have to be your private sensitive skin. Holy shit.
Looks good.
What the fuck did you do?
It looks real good.
Where'd the hair go?
It's still in your beard. It's just hanging off. It's just hanging off there.
It's a new look. I'm going to set a trend. Trend setter over here. But yeah. Shout out to Manscaped. Thank you for sending us the free stuff. And yeah, as you can see, it does a really good job. And that thing hasn't been charged since it was shipped here. So delicate enough for any parts. And it's also waterproof, which is awesome. So you can take it in the shower with you. If you ever need to use it, the commercial shows some guy dropping it in the toilet. And I'm not sure if that works. I've never tried that. And I never will because toilets are gross. So thank you, Manscaped, for giving us the opportunity to have that wonderful moment.
Yes. Holidays are coming up. So use the code SCARYISH for 20% off and free shipping.
So before we move into our next story, we are going to take a really quick commercial break. And we're back. All right, so moving on. My next email subject is ancestral apparition, which is a lot of alliteration, and I like it. It starts out like this. Hi, Adam and Robin.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? I recently found your podcast, and I am hooked. I tried listening to other paranormal podcasts, and nothing grabbed my attention quite like Scarish. I consider myself to be sensitive, hearing things and feeling presences others cannot, but this was by far my most intense experience. And I was only 4. Oh, snap. I'll preface by stating that I have a weird memory. The first memories I can recall happened at ages 1 or 2, and who would forget an experience like this despite being so young? Okay, I'll get into the story. Hopefully it's about that motorcycle guy going by in the background. Okay, I'll get into the story. One night when I was 4, I spent the night at my dad's parents' house. I think those are called your grandparents. I'm not a scientist or anything. The reason for the sleepover, unfortunately, was because my mother's father passed away in a work accident and my parents were attending his funeral. That's so sad. My parents didn't bring me because I was so young and they weren't ready to tell me what happened. But before leaving the physical world, he made sure I saw him one last time. During my stay, I awoke out of a deep sleep. Confused, I immediately turned to my left only to find my mom's father, or Opie, pronounced Ope, as I called him. He was from Germany, and that was my version of the word Opa for grandpa.
Opa.
I was startled as I was not at his house. I was at my other grandparents' house. I called out his name, but he quickly disappeared. The best way to describe what I saw was a full-body apparition of my grandfather. He looked very much like he always did, in full color and wearing a typical outfit you would find him in, but he had an almost golden glow about him. My experience was not like what you see on TV or in movies. It was much like seeing a physical person, but I knew it was not, in parentheses, other than the fact that he was in a place you wouldn't find him in. Obviously, because he shouldn't be there, and it's just very odd, but it just seems like he's just standing in front of you. I get what you're saying here. Frightened by his sudden disappearance, I threw the covers over my head and fell back asleep quickly. In the morning, I made my way to the kitchen to tell my dad's mother what happened. She brushed me off and told me what I witnessed was not possible. I had no concept of ghosts at the time, and I didn't even know my Opie had died.
Oh, wow.
But, fuck me.
You know what's funny is our reaction whenever we fuck up is always to say, fuck me.
You should hear the cutting room floor from any of our episodes. It's so fucking ridiculous. So I'm not sure why I felt frightened during what transpired. I guess it was my developing brain's way of making sense of someone appearing and disappearing from my bedside. It was most certainly not a dream, as I vividly remember both waking and falling back asleep. To this day, in parentheses, I'm now 30, I can still picture the entire scene since it had such a profound effect on me. Ultimately, the only person to believe me without question was, of course, my mother. Years later, when my dad's mother passed away, I woke up again out of a deep sleep while staying at a friend's house. I immediately called out my name for her, Nana, and while I didn't see her, I felt her presence and knew it was her way of checking on me before passing on as well. Maybe it was even her way of telling me I was right all along about ghosts and spirits. I've always considered Opie my guardian angel, and I am happy to now work for a foundation that strives to prevent workplace accidents like his, honoring his memory. Please feel free to share my homegrown horror. Thank you, and keep on creeping on. Brienne.
I love that name.
Yeah, it's a great name. Thank you so much for sending that in. We get a lot of these, and I'm so happy when we do because they're such, I wouldn't say traumatic, but they're incredibly impactful regardless of what age it happens to you at. And from all walks of life, all over the planet, which is crazy to think about, people have stuff happen like this, and you feel this sense of visitation from this loved one that's no longer with you physically, and you get a form of closure from it, which I think is just really, really awesome and really nice.
Yeah.
And I also think it's super awesome that you now work for a place that prevents workplace accidents like what happened to your grandfather, because what better way to honor his memory than to do something like that? So
I love when kids grow up and they become doctors or they become social workers or things like that because they want to help people that helped others in their life, or prevent accidents. Like car accidents and stuff like that, or become police officers and things because they just want to help.
It's crazy to think cool. How much your experiences shape who you're going to be, you know, because this happened to you when you were 4 years old and now you're 30 years old, 26 years down the line. And it's definitely shaped who you are as a person and the path that you're going to lead in your life. So, thank you so much for sending that. If you have any other stories too, send them our way. We'd absolutely love to hear them. So thank you one more time.
So this next story is from Nisaya, and it is titled Shadow Woman. So the email begins, "Hello, spooky friends."
Hello. And all spooky friends, shout out hello wherever you are right now.
"My name is Nisaya. Love the pod. I found you guys on Spotify."
Shout out to Spotify.
"Anyway, on to my story. So today, on my way back from the nail salon, I was talking to my mom about why I sleep with my back to the wall. And she started talking about how when I was 6 or so, I used to have night terrors. I don't even remember having them. And one night I was screaming really loud in my sleep. So she started to pray for me. I know my mom, when we had really bad dreams, she would say, just say these prayers and it'll go away, you know?
My mom would say, shut the fuck up. And they would typically go away. So, not really. My mom was really sweet whenever I used to have night terrors.
She told me that she could see the face of a woman over me. She also said she was praying so loud that my grandma could hear her. We were living with my grandma at the time.
I was going to say, I hope that's the case. Otherwise, she was praying really, really loud.
My grandma came to check on us and also saw the lady. What? After they finished praying and the lady was gone, I've never had a night terror since. Well, that's it. Sorry if it was long. Sorry for the grammar. It was so short. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry.
I have more stories. I'll send soon. Lots of love, Nisaya. Thank you so much.
We absolutely want to hear the rest of your stories, Nisaya.
Yeah. And it's really strange because I'm sure it happens to so many people where it's not just you. Other people are experiencing the same thing, and it kind of is a terrifying situation when that happens, you know?
It's really creepy to think about the fact that, you were asleep when all this took place, and your mom saw something, and then your grandmother came in and also saw the same thing. So it's corroborating witnesses of something that was happening to you while you were in the middle of a horrible, horrible nightmare. It
goes back to the thing where sometimes people don't want to experience things alone, though, too.
That's true.
And so your mom was like, I need to pray real loud, and the grandma was like, yo, I got you.
I think the mom was praying real loud because of fear, just trying to, get rid of the demons. But the grandma heard it and was like, what the hell? Like, if you heard praying, if I woke up in the middle of the night and heard praying super loud coming from one of the rooms, I would stay in bed because I'm not getting involved with that shit. It's none of my fucking business. But some people are better people than I am, and they'd be like, oh, let's see what's going on. So, yeah. I'm glad that you haven't had night terrors since then. And it's probably not a coincidence. So thank you for sending that in. Send us the rest of your stories as well. We want to hear them. So thank you to everyone who sent in their stories. We sincerely appreciate that. If you have a story you would like to share with us, please email storytime@scarish.com or go to our website, scarish.com, and click on Contact Us. You can fill out that form. It comes directly to us. You can also hit us up on any of our social medias. You can go to Facebook, which is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Message us there. You can go to Twitter, which is @scarishpod, and DM us or tweet at us if it's pretty short or you just want to do a bunch of tweets. Or you can go to @scarishpodcast, which is our Instagram, and message us. We get a lot there, in fact, so we always love to hear from you. And any of those social medias that you contact, that's us replying to you. It's not someone else. It's not a social media manager. Just us. So it might take a minute. We usually get back to you pretty quick, though, and we would love to hear from you. So, Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scaryishpodcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1. And with $1, you get ad-free episodes, which is absolutely great. And there's also physical merch tiers as well. So you can go over there and check that out. If you want to do one-time donations, you can go to ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast. And, all your donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup.
Indeed. If it sounded like Robin was making a lot of mouth noises or a lot of whimpering, it's because she was holding our Shiba Inu. So if you've never joined us for a live Storytime episode, you're missing out on adorable doggos that wander into the studio sometimes and get on the camera. So please join us at youtube.com/scarish or twitch.tv/scarishpodcast. That's every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Except for tonight. But that's okay, because in the future, that is exactly what they will be. Thank you to everyone who watches live. Thank you to everyone who listens on the podcast version. You all really do keep us going, and we appreciate all the support you've given us. But I think that's just about everything we have for tonight. So, Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.